Well, with the location settled, or so we think, it was time to do everything much more precisely. So I pulled out the survey that we got a few years ago when we bought the house. And the red stars indicate the possibilities for the location. If you were following from the start of these videos, there's the one and the gravel driveway just off the deck. There's the one that we rejected at the top, which was behind the house, thinking it was too far away from things and at the same time too close to the house. We're worried about the house casting a shadow. And then there's the one that we chose in the last few videos, shown at the right between the planter, which is our garden with the raised beds, and the well. So in the improvement location certificate, or the survey, it shows that there's a 10-foot utility easement, and you can't build in the easement. Well, you could build in the easement, but the utilities have the right to dig it all up, and if they see anything there that you've built, they have the right to knock it down. Now the planter is there. Planter came with the house, and who knows when it was put in. So theoretically, the utility could disrupt the planter, but our concern is not the planter, it's the greenhouse. So I decided that I needed a much more accurate property line. And on the survey, the blue arrows at the top and the right show rebars that the surveyor found, and I was able to locate those rebars. So what I need to do now is come up with a much more accurate position for the property line so I can measure the 10-foot easement. There was a stake in the ground already near the rebar at that north corner of the lot, and I did find the rebar down in the dirt, and the stake is basically where the rebar is. So the first thing I did here is I tied a string, an old kite string, to this stake, and then I ran it all the way down the yard to the far end and tied it to a stake that I knocked in near the rebar at that corner. And that is sort of the property line. The problem is that the line is very lightweight, and it dips down lower as it gets to the other side, and the various weeds and other things growing out of the ground, I think, are interfering with the path of the string. So although that sort of worked, I wasn't happy that it was accurate enough. So I did something else. I painted the top of that stake white, as you saw, so it's possible now to see it from a distance. And then around the middle of the yard, I built a little thing to hold a length of PVC pipe and put a level on it and got it pretty well perpendicular to the ground. So it was possible then to move to the other stake way over here beyond the garden with the raised beds. I don't think you can see it in this video, but you can sort of see the string, and the string leads to it. So what I did is I stood there right on top of the rebar and then sighted along and lined my PVC stake up with the stake that was in the ground that I painted white. And I was able to line things up that way. And I didn't have a helper, so I then had to move back and relocate the PVC pipe. Sorry for the quick pan there. And moved it back and forth until it lined up. And so I call the PVC pipe correct. It was a little bit inside the string. I pounded in a steel stake there that you could see, and then I moved the string to basically be taut against the steel, although, and so now the string, at least in this part of the yard, is very accurate. So I am standing now at the location that we thought would work for the greenhouse, but we decided it is too close to the road, and you just saw a car go past. Now we don't get a lot of traffic on our road, but still it seems a little exposed. So we're not so happy with this location. And what we did is we found a phone app that tells us exactly what we want to know, which is what trees and parts of the house are going to cast a shadow on various locations for the greenhouse. So here now is what we think is a better location. I rejected this real early in the videos as being too close to the house, worrying about the shadow that would be cast on the one time of year when the sun is lowest in the sky, which is the winter solstice, December 20th, 21st. But with our app, as I'm going to show you in a minute, we were able to determine, is it really true that there's too much of a shadow here? And it is located 10 feet from the property line. And I think you can see the string here in its new, more accurate location, because I have it tied up against that steel stake. Here's a view of our final greenhouse site from the back deck of the house. You can see my PVC pipe, and then the steel fence there secures our cultivated part of the yard from curious elk and deer. So that's what we're going to do. There's a gate right there. The greenhouse is not so far from the gate, and I will run water and electricity to the greenhouse from the house. The app is called Sunseeker. You can get it for iPhones or Android phones like mine. And it has a very, very accurate geospatial data. And here I am with the app on my phone, using my phone's camera to look at the house. I'm standing right at the frame in the middle of the wall that's closest to the house, and the teal line that you see is the path of the sun on December 21st, as it shows right there. You can see all the times, December 21st. So the sun rises about 7 a.m. on that day, but we have a hill to the southeast, and so we don't see the sun until about an hour later, 8 a.m. And at 8 a.m. it turns out that our trees are not in the way, and you could see the sun traverses. There's a smaller tree farther away, but I don't think that'll have any effect. And it stays above the roof line of the house until 2 p.m. when it hits the roof, and so around 2 to 2:45 or so, it's blocked by the house, although some of the sun might be peeking over. And then at 3 p.m. Kind of clears a gap between some trees. By the way, I should mention, these trees are evergreens. They're not deciduous. They don't drop their leaves in the winter, so you really do have to worry about the trees here mostly, well, in Colorado, but particularly on our property. So the sun sets about 5 or something like that. There's really not much daylight past 3 p.m., no matter where you put the greenhouse. So we're pretty good. Worst case, we're getting sunlight from, say, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're getting 6 hours of sunlight on the big wall of the greenhouse at the winter solstice. A little bit before the winter solstice, the sun's a little higher in the sky, and after the winter solstice, the sun's a little higher in the sky. So this is the worst it gets, and almost all of the winter, it's actually better than this. So this is where we're going to put the greenhouse. Now, as I mentioned, we have to build a foundation out of concrete-filled sonotubes, and the ground's hilly. The other location that we now don't want to use anymore, I showed you the ground was hilly, and you know that some of the sonotubes had to stick out of the ground. That's going to be the case here too. It's going to be different, but it's going to be the same thing. The sonotubes are responsible for providing a level surface. A few more details about this diagram. Look at the west wall. The space between the bolts is 9 feet 8.5 inches. When I lay the 4x6 beams on the north and south walls, since the bolt has to go through the beam, edge to edge will be 10 feet, and the same deal when I lay the west and east beams. They go through the middle of the bolts, so we end up with 12 feet on the north and south walls. Also, look at the sonotube in the middle of the east wall. That one needs to be 5.5 inches below the existing grade. We don't want to regrade the area around the greenhouse any more than we have to. And then when I put the 4x6, which is actually 5.5 inches, on top of that sonotube, it'll come just to grade level, and that's where the door goes. So there might be 1 inch or maybe 1.5 or something like that for the decking, but we want to be able to wheel a wheelbarrow or cart through the door, and so we don't want it to be too high or too low, and all the other sonotubes have to be level with that key sonotubes. And then I've noted that the northeast wall is 10 feet from the property line, and that everything is aligned along the east-west and north-south axes. So when this is all built, the young man who does the work is very good. If he gets all the sonotubes perfectly level, then all I have to do is put the beams down. But probably they won't be perfectly level. That's kind of impossible. So I'll probably have some shims in there, and we'll see what the case is later on. And that'll be in the video, you can be sure of that. The foundation work is going to begin in about 3 weeks, so we won't be able to show you any progress on actual construction until then, although I have other work to do between now and then, such as repair the broken panes. And as I get to that, I'll show you what that looks like on a video, removing the putty and so on and so forth.